So how much money do you make?
Should I answer that question honestly or not? I run a VC fund now, so I make... The big difference between VC and entrepreneurship is that in entrepreneurship, you've bet on one horse. Here, I've bet on 10 or 11 horses. And so, if one or two of them don't win the race, but 9 win the race, I'm still okay. I'd done about 75 pitches and something was not clicking. I went to Amazon, who didn't give me any attention. I said, hey, I'm doing now like $100,000 a month on my website and I'm doing only $5,000-10,000 a month on your platform. Really, you're the one with the problem, not me. The founder of Epigami actually told me this, Mohan. He said, our job as entrepreneurs is to keep throwing darts on that dartboard. And you keep throwing and keep throwing and keep throwing until you hit the bullseye. But until you hit the bullseye, you don't stop throwing.
Before scaling, what are the 3 things that a startup needs to get right to successfully scale?
I think...
Yeah, so how much money do you make?
Should I answer that question honestly or not? I run a VC fund now, so I make good money. I think it's actually very different from the time I was an entrepreneur. When you're an entrepreneur, actually, you don't care at all about the salary because you have the equity value of your shareholding, which eventually will lead to something. In a lot of cases, actually leads to nothing. A lot of entrepreneurs don't eventually see that exit, but fortunately, I saw that exit, so I saw the equity translate into value. As a VC, actually, and someone who runs a VC, or in between, because you have what's called management fees, so it's a percentage of the money you manage, that amount of money you get to run your operations, build your team, and then obviously compensate yourself. But the real juice has to come from carried interest, which is a share of the profits that you make when you sell the equity. And so I would say that I'm somewhere in between now. Sometimes, people who run funds say it's like entrepreneurial, etc., all of that. I wouldn't go so far to say that it's as much of a grind as running a startup, but it's in between. So definitely, my success will be based on the success of my companies and my portfolio. The big difference between VC and entrepreneurship is that in entrepreneurship, you've bet on one horse.
Yeah.
Here, I've bet on 10 or 11 horses. And so, if one or two of them don't win the race, but 9 win the race, I'm still okay. So that portfolio approach means it's the average has to do well. But there could be a few laggards. As compared to in entrepreneurship, you can't say my company, parts of it can do well, parts of it can do badly, but still it'll be okay. That's not how it works. So it's a different approach.
And what was the skill that you had to develop now to work as a VC that you didn't have as a...
There are some pros and some cons of being an entrepreneur, and then I'll talk about the new skills I had to develop, right? The pro is that, especially in consumer, I've gone and built out a business. Right? I've built a business that was reasonably successful, that was a market leader. I built it on e-commerce, so I know the nitty-gritties of what makes it work and what doesn't make it work from my successes and my failures. Because I wouldn't say I was successful in everything. And so sometimes when I speak to entrepreneurs, they say, hey, Arjun, you ask the right questions. You ask the right questions. You don't focus on the irrelevant stuff. You ask the operational questions, the serious questions, etc. You ask the right questions. So I think from that perspective, I have some advantage. Right? The cons are actually, you only believe what you have seen. So if there is something that didn't seem like it was in the realm of possibility while I was building, then I would question whether it's even possible or scalable, etc. 1. 2, you have a lot of bias towards what you have seen, but you have not seen the entire world, right? So for example, I got in 21 quick commerce completely wrong. I thought it was a very high cash burn model. I said, why do you really need something in 10-15 minutes? Does it really make a difference? These businesses will last while there is funding, but it won't change consumer behavior, etc. So I had not seen it, right? And what was happening globally didn't say that it was necessarily successful in Europe or the US. Try to peer into the future and look into the future. Today's situation in business and market may not determine what I'm investing in for the next 5 or 7 years. And as an entrepreneur, I looked at the world in 100-day to 6-month sprints.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I just said, what am I doing for the next 3 to 6 months? I don't care about 3 years out. Like, I got to solve for this first. I think as a VC, you got to peer a little bit into the future, look at market trends, look at macro, etc. All of that. The third thing I would say actually is content. I think, look, I entered this industry when I was 29 years old as a fund manager. Clearly, I had less experience than most people. While I had entrepreneurial experience, I didn't have investing experience. And I had to build some moat in terms of deal funnel, in terms of entrepreneurs connecting with me, reaching out to me. And I thought a lot of the VCs use a very traditional approach. They had PR, they spoke to newspapers, they spoke to magazines. And honestly, I think LinkedIn has much more reach than any newspaper does today.
Yeah.
Right? So I give this example quite a bit. I have a portfolio company called Dil Foods, which went on Shark Tank. The Shark Tank pitch went quite viral. So they got 2.5 million views on the Shark Tank pitch. I posted about my investment thesis in Dil Foods and why I invested in the company. That post on LinkedIn got 1 million views. Wow. So no newspaper can give me that reach. And so I think this approach that we have taken at V3 and I specifically enjoy is to use Instagram and LinkedIn as my lead funnel to share knowledge, thesis, where we want to invest, where we've invested, what we do, and through that attract the right set of entrepreneurs. So I think these are a few new skills.
Nice.
And I think working in a very lean team is another thing that I wasn't used to, right? In my company, I had 150 people across various functions. Now in V3, I have 3 people, including me. So there's just 2 team members, right? And so operating in this, and you don't need so many more people. We have 3.5 people, I would say that. Our legal counsel spends half his time on our business and half his time on the Bolo Invest business. And then there's just 2 more folks in my team. And that is very new because we had a large group of people. But I'm enjoying actually working with a lean team. Everything is done in a conversation with 1 more chair, where 2 here and 1 more chair there. And so you can sometimes get a lot more done quicker.
You mentioned that you had some successes and some failures. What was your most spectacular failure?
I mean, I had a lot of failures, honestly. I think I had more failures than successes. Most spectacular failure was believing my Excel sheet business plan will actually pan out, right? So I made this Excel sheet business plan for Dr. Vaidya's, and it was like in the first year I'd do $1 million in sales, next year I'd do 3 million, year after I'd do 7 million. And I started, and the first few months actually hit the numbers that I said they would hit. And so I started believing that it's like how I was in my private equity job before, the Excel sheet will just pan out and this is what it is. And started believing that Excel sheet, right? The best fiction stories are written in Excel. 3 months later, actually, all those projections that I had done and all those numbers that I thought I was hitting, I was not hitting because I got a lot of returns back. And that's when reality set in and I said, it's going to be much harder than this Excel sheet told me it would be. And it's going to be a grind. So I think that was one spectacular failure. Second big spectacular failure was we didn't build brand until 3 years in because we didn't have the money, the guts, and understood the need. And so we built a performance marketing focused business, which was very tactical. Now, it worked to a point. And then when it stopped working, and when you needed brand, you had done no work there.
Yeah.
So I think we got lucky that we operated in an environment where we got by doing what we were doing for 2.5 years. But today that would have been an even bigger failure, right? And so to start the branding 3 years into the company, which was a failure, I was scared to hire also. I think that was a big failure. I was scared to hire ahead of time, and it was maybe lack of foresight, it was maybe fear, it was maybe lack of experience. So I started building my team also 3 years in. Until then, I was pretty much doing everything, and I had a very small team and a junior team doing it. If I was to do it all over again, definitely build a team first. And the failure I've talked about most is we failed miserably offline. We started the business offline, and 6 months later, I realized this is not working out. Not because there's no market for Ayurvedic products offline, but because I didn't have the money, the wherewithal, the resources, and the know-how. The first 3 are circumstantial. The 4th is self-reflection. I was not able to build a business offline. I didn't have the skill set, the know-how, the ability. And that self-reflection allowed me to say, I'm going to shut down this business. I'll let go of my 20 people sales team. I'll wait till they get new jobs for a month and then I'll let them go. And that allowed me to eventually pivot online.
Oh.
So it didn't start as an online business. And I think that journey of self-reflection, of saying this didn't work, it didn't lead me to saying that online will work. I just said, this is not working. I'm just accepting it's not working. I'm shutting the door here. And then whether online works or something else works, I don't know, but this is clearly not working. So let me shut this.
Yeah. Yeah. So it looks like, well, there are a couple of failures that you mentioned. And I think it's very important for an entrepreneur to create feedback loops, right? That gives you information about, am I in the right direction or not?
Correct.
What did you find useful as a feedback, to give you a feedback so that you could avoid those failures?
See, I think, look, even before we had investors, we created a very good discipline in the organization. So I created an advisory board. I'll talk about the biggest mistake with my advisory board and then what worked, right? The biggest mistake with my advisory board was I looped in 4 people. 1 was my dad and 3 were industry leaders. But I didn't raise any money and didn't give them a chance to invest in my business. And even if I didn't give them a chance to invest in my business, with the advisory board, I didn't even give them any skin in the game. I didn't give them any equity, any vested shares, nothing. I just said, you are nice people, you like me, I seem like a good person. Once a month I'll call you, you'll pick up my call and we'll talk. They did it out of their own goodwill for 1, 2, 3 months. And then after a while, I think they also were very busy people. And so they had their lives. And I don't blame them. I think it was my shortcoming to not give these people skin in the game. So those 3 people obviously eventually didn't give as much time to the business, and I understand why. And today if I was to do it over again, I'd say I'd incentivize you with even though I wasn't raising money, maybe let you put a small check or give you some way to get some equity or some skin in the game in the business, right? Now, the only person who was sort of incentivized was my dad, because he was already a shareholder in the business. And even though he was my dad and the shareholding was in the family and my mom and my brother also own shares, I said, you are the chairman of our board. And so while we don't have any external investors, just family, once a month I will come sit with you in your office and present you my numbers like you are my investor and take your feedback. Because sometimes if you don't have investors, you're bootstrapping the business, it can get very lonely and you'll also not have any feedback loops, right? Because you're on your own, you're alone, you're figuring it out.
I love that, yeah.
And so that activity of going once a month, and by the way, my dad is not from this industry, he's not from the startup world, he runs a traditional jewelry, luxury jewelry and watch business. So completely different. But just getting that sometimes right and wrong perspective, to just reflect and think, where am I going? Right or wrong is irrelevant, but just stepping out of my office, and I would go to his office and make it a point to go to his office and not call him to my office. So I step out of my environment, I step out of my horse with blinders race, and I go somewhere else and I see outside of my business, how is it looking? I think that was a very helpful activity. Eventually we got investors, and with them there was a board and a monthly sort of cadence of calls, etc. But before that also it was important.
Yeah, wow. So your advice, what you have done is like start with advisors and then
start
at the right...
with advisor, board, someone outside your business that you can show what's going on.
Yeah.
And it could be an angel investor, it could be anybody.
Yeah.
But someone outside who you are accountable to.
Yeah.
Because that accountability is important. It also allows you then to make that presentation, look at your MIS in more detail, preempt questions. From those questions, you can actually figure out, hey, this is actually not going as well as I thought.
Yeah, but also what I like is then the second part is also make them have some skin in the game.
Correct.
And that's then the next part, right?
The only one with skin in the game out of my advisory board is the one who stuck with it through 5 years and gave time every month.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense, right? Like people can do only so much out of their sheer goodwill, and they have their own lives and their own interests as well, where they have, which they have to take care of.
Yeah, so you spoke about the mistakes. What about your inner journey? What was your lowest moment in that journey?
The lowest moment I would say was when we were raising money. It seemed like everybody around us who was running startups was getting that money easily, but for some reason we were not. I'd done about 75 pitches through angel investors, angel networks, VC funds, private equity funds, and something was not clicking. And actually, if I reflect back, what was not clicking was our business had not hit product market fit. And I was just trying to raise money, right? And the idea was very good.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But if you're not able to sell, you're not able to sell. And I went for this one investor meeting, and I had no shame, by the way, in being a salesman for my product. I would wear my company t-shirt everywhere I went. And so I would carry this box, this wooden box with all our products and a nice display. Now, I didn't have money to create a nice display. And so I took one of my dad's watch display units and I replaced the watches with my plastic medicine bottles. Right? So it was a big box. I went to this fancy building in South Bombay where this VC fund had a swanky office. There was obviously security at the bottom. I had to like register myself, etc. And then I was trying to take this wooden box out, right? So I put it through the X-ray machine, and security's like, "What is this box? Why are you taking this box up, etc." I was like, "It's my product samples." They're like, "You'll have to call up." I called up to the VC's office. I called the associate. I was like, "Hey, I'm bringing my product samples. He's not allowing me." Like, "What are you bringing?" It's a big wooden box. They're questioning me. He came down. He's like, "Why you brought this box, etc." And then I took that box up and I opened the box, I was presenting, etc., all of that. And the partner, for some reason, found it very funny that I got this box. And I was carrying a box, I was carrying my backpack, and then my product samples that I wanted to leave with them. And so I was struggling to carry all this stuff, right? And the partner found it really funny. He didn't give me attention, and he wasn't really present in the meeting. And he was on his phone the whole time. And then midway through the meeting, he cracked a joke about something I was saying and then just walked off and left the meeting. And that was not the lowest point. The lowest point was I went back to the office and I was running the fundraise. My wife was my co-founder. And I reached back to the office around 8 p.m. and everybody had left. And she said, "How did the meeting go?" And I said, "Really shit. Like really shit." And she just looked up at the ceiling and there was nobody in the office. Everybody left for the day. And she's like, "Why is it always us? Like, why are we the only people who can't raise money?" And at that moment, you feel like, one, yeah, why always me? Why am I not getting it? But two, I am actually responsible for this in our co-founder partnership, in our marriage, in our relationship. I am responsible to bring this as the next step of the business and I'm not doing well enough. So that was a very low point. Yeah. And then, interestingly, when we eventually got some term sheets and we were able to successfully raise about 6-8 months later, that same VC fund came and said, "Hey, we'd like to put a 750K check." And at that point, I was like, no.
And how did you overcome that moment?
Try again. So I think there's two things. One is you keep trying, and I have now no issue in keeping on trying. I'll keep trying and keep trying and keep trying till I'm successful, and some things won't work out, and that's okay, right? As an entrepreneur, you face enough failure to say if that person's not responding or that person's not interested, you just move on and keep going on, right? So I think that's one thing. The other thing is that I think what we were lacking was product market fit. The moment product market fit hit, the moment we were doing 30,000 rupees a day, 50 orders a day on our website, at an average order value of 750 rupees, the customer acquisition cost was less than 300 rupees, and the business started ticking or working. I think that's when we felt confidence. That's also when investors felt confidence to back us.
Okay.
So I think when the economics of the business started working, then our pitch was better. We had more confidence. We were able to pitch more confidently, to show the future more confidently. That's when investors got more interested. So I wouldn't say the investors were completely at fault for not investing in the business when they didn't. Eventually, when things started working out, then that's right.
So your wife was saying, like, why us? Why are we the only ones that
we are putting in 14 hours a day. We are working really hard. We've been at it for 2.5 years. Everybody else seems to be doing fine and raising money. Why are we not the only ones who can crack it?
So what would have been a better question that you could have asked yourself at that time that would help you in that moment?
I think the question at that point would be, am I focusing on the wrong thing?
Oh.
In the sense that at this point, if I've pitched to 75 people and they're all saying no, can I reflect back and see what's wrong with my business, solve that and then go in? And we didn't ask ourselves that question. We kept pitching. But through the process, we solved the problems in our business, and then eventually things worked out.
Yeah.
But it could have been that, hey, I'm going to stop now. I'm not going to pitch anymore. I'm going to solve these problems, set these milestones for myself for the next 6 months, and then start again.
What was the most important problem that you solved that helped you to get into product market fit?
I think that razor sharp focus on one channel. See, as a consumer business, you can sell on marketplaces, various marketplaces. There are 10, 20, 50 marketplaces you can sell on. You can export your product. You can sell it through the offline channel, through general trade, modern trade. You can do B2B, and then you can do your own website, all of these channels, right? But as an early stage organization, you don't have the bandwidth, the team, the know-how, the knowledge to focus on all of these things. And so at some point we said, we're going to stop everything, I'll just focus on our website. And once we crack this channel, we'll go to the rest. Once we started doing 200, 300, 500 orders a day on our website, I went to Amazon, who didn't give me any attention. I said, hey, I'm doing now like $100,000 a month on my website, and I'm doing only $5,000, $10,000 a month on your platform. So clearly, you're the one with the problem, not me. And you're leaving money on the table because I'm doing so much there. And then they got interested. They're like, let's scale it, let's scale it, let's scale it. When I was doing $5,000 on my website and $1,000 on Amazon, nobody cared. And they did Amazon, and I didn't have a business there. So I think working on one channel, scaling it, and then moving to the rest.
Yeah. So it's very difficult. I mean, for an entrepreneur, you're doing so many things and you see so many opportunities. But what you're saying that help you is like you focus one channel and crack it.
And all of those opportunities, eventually you will be able to use. But at the right time.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing 5 things with a team of 2 people or 3 people or 5 people, you are a 6 on 10 at 5 things.
Yes.
As opposed to being a 10 on 10 on one thing and then saying I'll be a 10 on 10 on the next and then a 10 on 10 on the next. So it's like,
wow,
I'm average at many things, or I'm good at one and then I move to the next and I become good at that, and then I move to the next and become good at that. So eventually 6 on 10 in 5 things is 30 on 50.
Yeah.
And then 3 10 on 10s are also 30 on 50, on 30, right? So the value actually may be more on this side.
Yeah, but I think that's the most difficult thing for an entrepreneur when there's so many opportunities. How to choose that one thing that will, at the end, will make all the difference. What's your experience with that?
I think we picked the one that we're most confident would work. There is not so much theory you can do in that. Like, how do you pick that one thing? I think you got to go with some gut, some intuition. See, because I can give you all of these theory and jargon, but the reality is it's a gut call at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the founder of Epigami actually told me this, Rohan. He said, our job as entrepreneurs is to keep throwing darts on that dartboard. And you keep throwing and keep throwing and keep throwing until you hit the bullseye. But until you hit the bullseye, you don't stop throwing. So you keep trying. If this doesn't work, you try this way. If this doesn't work, you try this way. You keep trying different ways till eventually you find the way that works, and then you keep throwing in that way.
Yeah. And then the another question that entrepreneurs have, how do I know that I have product market fit?
You know. I think this is a feeling that you get, right? So you're hitting your head against the wall, you're trying to figure it out, and it's not working, and it's not working, and it's not working. And then it starts working. As an entrepreneur, you smell it. When my business started working, I knew that moment, now I'm onto something. Because for a very long time, you're onto nothing, right? And so when I could sleep at night knowing that if I don't go to work the next day, I'll hit 50 orders on the website without any additional action, any additional input, that's when I hit product market fit.
Yeah, you know what? I asked that to an entrepreneur and he really answered in a beautiful way. He said to me, like, you will know that you hit a product market fit.
You smell business.
Yeah, but you will, I mean, you will know when you stop thinking about that, because you are going to be so busy, like with your orders, with like that, right? The moment you are always thinking, do I have product market fit, is when you don't have product market fit, right?
And when you have it, like I keep telling founders, before you have it, you're philosophical, you're questioning, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're thinking this, you're thinking that. When you get sales, sales solves everything.
Yeah.
It solves all your problems.
Yeah.
It solves your cash burn, it solves your HR problem, it solves attracting the team, it solves clarity of thought. Sales solves everything.
Yeah. So what you said is like, first you got really good, like you worked on a feedback system with your advisors that helped you. Then you had one thing that you cracked. And once you had a product market fit, then it was about scaling,
Correct.
right? Like for you, before scaling, what are the 3 things that a startup needs to get right to successfully scale?
I think it's a general question. Maybe I'll share some thoughts from my end, but it won't be exhaustive. I think we made a mistake on not hiring enough because we thought we could do everything ourselves. But if you're not able to delegate, you're not able to build a team that helps, eventually your output is capped.
Yeah.
So one person working 14 hours a day and efficiently you can only work 10 hours a day, right? So, or 3 people working 8 hours a day, it's 10 efficient hours or 24 efficient hours. So I think hiring a team so that you can take that scale in is crucial, and that will eventually help you compound your growth, right? The second thing is, it's not talked about enough actually. You may get the business, but you've got to be able to execute the business. And so at least in the e-commerce world, you've got to have a strong operational backend to be able to dispatch on time, to be able to dispatch correctly, to be able to reduce returns, to be able to check the deliveries are done on time, to be able to call and ask for feedback and retention, etc. So that backend engine needs to be built. And the third thing is, see, at the end of the day, you've got to solve a real customer problem. A lot of times I see businesses which are built for problems that the founders are facing, which are not large enough customer problems. Especially in consumer, the way South Mumbai consumes, or the way South Delhi consumes, or the way Bangalore consumes, may not be the way India consumes. And so you got to find a problem that's a problem for consumers and not just your friends and family. And you can't create problems. You can't just say, I have this product, it's not really needed, but I'll find a way to make it needed. No, we're not the US. We're not the deep level of consumerism that you see in the US. And so I think really solving a consumer problem allows them to keep coming back. So before I got on this, before we started, I was telling you I had to buy something. Right? I had to buy this one product, this health supplement that I keep consuming, and I love consuming, and I run out of the health supplement. So I was like, oh, I haven't had it yesterday, and I probably won't have it today, but if I order it today, it'll come by tomorrow or day after. So I want to order it in time. That's product market fit, right? Solve a problem for me. I remember I had to buy it. I said, hey, can you give me 1 minute? And before we started the podcast, I bought that product, put my card details in, and completed the purchase.
So what you say first, make sure that you have a good team in place, right? The second, make sure that you have the systems and the process so that you can have an amazing execution. And the third, make sure that you're
actually
solving a real problem, right? If we go to the first one, which is the building the team, you mentioned that at certain time you were a bit afraid and you did some mistakes. What would you have done different in terms of building a team?
I think you got to have the guts to hire in advance.
Yeah. Boom.
I didn't have the guts.
Yeah.
I realized the mistakes I made when I hired good people.
Yeah.
And the amount of impact it caused in my organization. See, there's a fine line between under-hiring and over-hiring. Right? Over-hiring is also a problem. You hire too many expensive resources for a business that doesn't exist only. That's another issue. And under-hiring is you're doing everything yourself. That fine line of saying, hey, eventually I'll need 10 people or 10 managers across 10 functions in my organization. But today, at this stage, I may need to just hire 3 of them to solve the 3 biggest problems while I can do the rest for now. That balance is crucial. And I think what helped me was building an HR plan. Like you build a revenue plan, like you build a supply plan, like you build a purchase of inventory plan, building an HR plan, saying, hey, this is my business plan for the next, I built a business plan, let's say, once I raise money for the next 3 years. Right? As per this business plan, or if I'm following this business plan, this is how I'll have to hire. And per month, these are the number of people I'll have to hire, at what salary, right? Now, if you make 60% of business plan, you know to make 60% of the HR plan as well. If you make 80%, 80%. If you make 120%, 120%.
Yeah.
But it gives you a guidance of when to hire which people. And the thing with human resources, it can't flow exactly. Because if you need someone, you can't find the right person maybe 2 or 3 months later. But at least it is in your horizon that now that I've reached this scale, I need to hire for this. Or in the next 3 months, this hiring is coming up. So if I find someone in advance, maybe I hire them 1 month early or 2 months early. But without that sort of overarching picture, you will not know when what's coming.
you need to have a think in advance, have people in advance in your team, but you need to have a good management so that you don't overhire.
Correct.
Right? And then what you say is like you have a clear long-term plan in terms of HR for your business, right?
I would say like you build a business plan, right? You build a plan of, hey, I need these many people, and then split it up into functions, and then actually split it up into salary brackets as well.
Yeah.
So you know in which month you have to hire which person, or in which quarter you have to hire which person, and how much you're willing to pay for that role as well.
Yeah. When you were scaling, what was something that surprised you a lot that worked really well?
I think the depth of the market really surprised me, because it took a long time for us to scale. And then when we hit 50 orders a day on our website and we went to VCs, they said, okay, like you can, obviously you're doing very well. This is great. And by the way, we're talking about 2018, 19, right? So different time. Today, 50 orders a day is not a big deal, but at that time it was on a single branded Ayurvedic website. They said, okay, you should start focusing on marketplaces now, because after 100 orders, you'll hit a ceiling. And then we had 100 orders, they're like, start focusing on marketplaces now, at 200 orders, you'll hit a ceiling. And then we got to 500 orders. And then I said, there's no ceiling. Let's just keep going. We got 1,000 orders, 2,000 and 3,000 and 5,000 orders. And so the depth of the market actually really positively surprised me. And it's a bit daunting or scary or intimidating when you're building a market where you don't know after 5,000 orders, is there a possibility to make 7,500 or 10,000 orders, right? Because actually in that industry, no one's done it before online. And so you're a bit confused as to, can I scale? Should I scale? But then when you see the numbers today and you speak to your team, they're like, yes, we can keep going. We're not stopping here. We're keeping on going on, right? So that positively surprised me.
Right.
And India is a really big country, right? Like I was in Europe for the Olympics recently, and Bombay, Delhi and Bangalore population-wise is bigger than the UK. Just these three cities, right? So think about sheer numbers. We are a massive country. Yeah. You hit product market fit, you will get an addressable market of 30-50 million customers just like this. What we don't accept or we fail to understand is these are bigger than most European countries.
Yeah.
The top 10 million households have 40 million people in India. That's the size of a European country.
Yeah. When I was working in India, I went to UP and my team was presenting to me the sales plan. And they started like, if UP would be a country, I think it would be the 5th or 6th biggest in the world. And I said, shit, that changes the perspective, correct, right? That's what you're saying. Like in India, there's a depth that maybe sometimes bigger than what the entrepreneurs they believe.
It's hard to get product market fit in India. Yeah. India is a complex consumer market. It's a very complex consumer market because it's sometimes impossible to draw global comparisons.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's counterproductive to say this worked in the US, it'll work in India.
Yeah.
But if you're able to get the pulse of that consumer and understand the way they consume, and we consume in a very odd way, right? Like 10 rupees is still a price point in India. 10 rupees was a price point in India when I was in school 20 years ago. It's still a price point in India. We have 5 to 6% inflation every year. So that 10 should have become 30 rupees by now. But it's still a price point 10 rupees because mentally the customer is willing to spend 10 rupees. So in a bag of chips, there is much more air and much less chips. But the 10 rupee packet that I bought in school is still at 10 rupees. Because mentally the customer ascribes 10 rupees as value to that packet. And they will not buy a 30 rupee, 50 rupee family pack. They'll buy 10 rupee packs.
Yeah.
Because the ascription of value is 10 rupees to that. That doesn't exist anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Does not exist.
Yeah.
The Costco Sam's Club phenomenon of buying bulk packs is not very successful in India.
Yeah.
Yes, D-Mart is successful because you go and you buy at a cheaper price, but it's not necessarily bulk packs that sell it.
Yeah, I think as a foreigner, I mean, India, the diversity and the complexity in India is very large. And you need to understand that. For example, when I was working in India, my sales team, we had to do a training for my sales team in 3 different languages. You know, it just starts there, you know, like there were some people, they didn't speak English, some people, they didn't speak Hindi, and some and there were other people.
And they have to speak. You have to speak in the regional language.
Yeah, yeah. So for you, like for companies who want to, let's say foreign companies that want to scale in India, what's your advice for them?
I think I have one advice. I've spoken to many foreign companies that have sold my business who are looking at India GTM. My advice is you cannot remote control this market. You have to have local market experts who are sitting in India and operating for you here. Yes, you can bring some resources from your global teams to India, but they have to come with an open mind.
Yeah.
If they come with a closed mind and they don't immerse themselves into Indian culture, you won't be successful.
Yeah.
But on the ground team is crucial.
Yeah.
Because the way general trade, kirana stores, customer behavior functions in India, until you come here, you not understand it. So for our global IC and our global teams, when they come to India, we take them on a market visit. We walk them through GT stores. We show them what is India, right? Because it's hard to appreciate it from YouTube and Instagram and seeing content online. You've got to come here to believe it.
Yeah. So now if we think about like another important part is marketing. Do you have an example of a good company in India that is doing an amazing job in terms of marketing in India?
Yeah, I think, look, the interesting part about India is there are various countries or various different kinds of consumer behavior in India. So like, for example, top 1% of India, top 0.5% of India will consume like exactly the same way as the top 1% in New York, in London, in San Francisco, in LA. And then as you go down, their customers may model Poland, and then the customers may model Mexico, and then the customers may model Brazil, and then as you go down, may model Sub-Saharan Africa, right?
Yeah.
And so for each of these price points, actually, there is very unique marketing strategies that work. For example, in my company, where 2/3 of our customers were outside the top 10 cities of India, Instagram was irrelevant. These customers were on Facebook. And so only 10% of our meta budget went on Instagram. The rest went all on Facebook. So understanding those nuances and operating your marketing assumptions based on those nuances are very important. Like, I'm a big fan of a brand called Mokobara. They make luggage. I'm a big fan of this brand called Whole Truth in the way they do their branding. But that's for top of pyramid, right? Top 5%, top 10% of customers. I'm a big fan of this company we invested in called Lahori Zeera. It's a 10 rupee Jeera soda regional beverage. They actually do almost no above the line marketing. They push the product in below the line through promoters, through schemes to their retailers, and their marketing budget is 1% of their revenue.
Wow.
Because the product moves itself, right? So these assumptions we make on marketing may actually be completely irrelevant, and I've learned one thing about the Indian market. You've got to be completely humble at accepting customers' feedback. Your hypothesis may be completely wrong, and unless you're humble enough to accept that, you will not do as well.
Ouch.
It's true.
That's a tough one, yeah.
And you know, as an entrepreneur and as a VC, the assumptions we make are consistently proved wrong by the customers. Sometimes positively and sometimes negatively. Sometimes what you assume will do very well will do very badly, and sometimes something you think will do okay surprises you and does very well. So you got to just embrace the customer's feedback and just be humble to accept what the customer says in our country. Because at the end of the day, whatever you may discuss in a boardroom, whatever you may make it on an Excel sheet, until the customer takes out rupees from their wallet and buys, and a founder told me this, until the customer takes out money from their wallet and buys a product, and then he corrected himself, he said, you're a good salesperson. Until a customer takes out money from their wallet and buys a second time, you cannot make any assumptions.
So it's about being humble with the customer feedback.
And openly accepting that feedback.
Exactly. And always challenging the assumptions that we are doing in the business.
Correct.
Boom. Very good. Very cool. All right. So you scaled the business and then you exit. Yeah. So before exiting, what were the 2 questions that you asked yourself that helped you the most in that process?
Uh, I think one was, is the future of this business online for the next 5 years or 7 years? And I think to that question, the answer was that yes, you can scale it online to a certain extent, but eventually it has to go offline. And so the follow-up question to that was, then am I the right person for this business? But the other question, and people may not talk about this enough, is, okay, if I am to exit, am I getting paid fairly and enough value? And both of the answers were yes, and so we decided to take that decision. The future is offline for the next leg of scale, and I'm not the right person for that. And okay, fair enough, but am I getting paid the fair value for my effort and my equity? And the answer to that was yes. So that's the call we took.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, I mean, to have the courage just to, I mean, one is you put yourself into the future, right? You understood what was going to happen, and you asked the question: do I have the skills to be able to succeed with this business? And then the last one was like, okay, then if not, then I just need to be paid fairly for the work that I've done. And what helped you to decide when was the right moment to do it?
I think that was not so complicated. I think we had, as per our agreement, certain points in time where we could do this. And it was 3 to 6 month windows every 12 to 18 months. So one of those windows hit and that was the time. But we also got made an offer, right? And we accepted that offer.
So for an entrepreneur that is preparing for an exit, what do you say are some good questions that help him decide when is the right moment to sell the business?
Yeah, there is only one thing I would suggest. Cut the noise. You're the only one who can make that decision for yourself. And not relevant what other people say.
Yeah.
You can't take that advice because you are the only person who can answer those questions for yourself. Is it the right time? Have I done enough? From here, am I the right person? Should I continue or should I not continue? Where is my head at? What do I want to do next? Those are questions nobody can answer for you.
Yeah. And then you need to live in peace with that, right?
Correct. So my dad said one very important thing as we were exiting the business. He said, you sowed the seed to this plant. It's a plant today. Whether it wilts away or it becomes the biggest tree in the world, it's not your destiny anymore. Now you are a fan of the business, you are the founder of the business, and you are a customer. That's all.
Wow, that's a great one. Like when you...
He said another great thing to me.
Yeah.
He said the last day we went to the office, after that we invited our family to the office as at the end of the day. Our team had a nice farewell, all of those things. Emotional day, people got us cards. I remember like walking out of the elevator, and from the entrance of the elevator till my desk, where our entire team lined up, and they were clapping for us as we walked in the last time to the office. It felt like I'm a cricketer who's made a century and I'm walking back to the pavilion at the end of my innings. So the day ended, we invited our parents and our siblings to the office to have dinner with us on the same dining table that we ate. And it was a nice end to an experience. What was really interesting for me was that you spend 4.5, 5 years of your life thinking about only one thing. You spend time in that office, you sit on that chair, you do all of those things. And it takes 2 hours and 2 boxes to pack all of that up. 2 hours and 2 boxes. I didn't emotionally want to pack up my stuff before I left. So at the end, after everyone left, I packed up my stuff. In 2 hours, I was done. And everything was wrapped up. And I was driving home and my dad said one thing to me. He said, I've been an entrepreneur for 35 years. I've had no chance in my life to pause. Very few people get this opportunity to pause, rejig, rethink, and go again. You have that opportunity to use your time well.
Well, your father gave you really good advice, huh? Yeah. Tell me, what were your thoughts and feelings in those 2 hours?
As I was packing up?
Yeah.
It's a bit weird, honestly, to believe or to think that all of that in my mind could actually be cut out or shut down or closed in 2 hours. It was a weird feeling. Because... Describe
me the feeling.
Like play that in your mind a bunch of times, right? Like, I'm going to pack up, it's going to be in my box, it's going to take so long, I have so much stuff, I have files, I have papers, I have all this memory, I put all these things together. And then I just used help of one person when I packed it up, and then makes you think that actually change is inevitable. And you got to just keep moving on and on and on.
And then you took a break and
yeah, it was actually a very short break, 3-4 months, and then I couldn't take a break any longer, and so I started. So I had these grand plans. My wife and I are moving to Europe for 6 months, traveling, figuring it out. Booked a one-way ticket to London at that time. She used to live there, so we said, let's start there and then we'll figure out where we go. But second wave of COVID hit, and so we couldn't go. And so we moved to our beach home outside of Bombay in Alibag and lived there for 3 months. Best 3 months of our life. It's just lovely. Disconnected, living in a village. Just us. Lovely.
And now you work with a VC, so now you have a different role, right?
Yeah.
So when you are looking at entrepreneurs, they're making a pitch to you, what is the one thing that is really a red flag in when they are doing the pitch?
If they are not passionate about the business and are doing it because it seems like a great market opportunity that tactically they are sitting in, it's a big turnoff. The reason is today the market is hot, tomorrow the market is not. The business has to withstand those cycles. Yeah. And so if there's not deep passion and right to win, and they're just doing it to do it because it seems like it's interesting market or good market from the good tailwinds, the tailwinds go away after some time. And sometimes the tailwinds change to headwinds and you got to be able to ride that.
Do you have a great example of any startup where they really had that, they got that right?
I think a lot of successful companies are mission driven, right? They come from a founder's problem. They come from I built my business because my granddad had cured me of asthma. And I got a lot of my life back. And so I promised him I'll do something with the legacy. If you see so many personal care businesses, they come from founders' problem that the founders are facing. I think at some way, subliminally, like I was talking to the founders of WakeFit, they said actually one of the founders was getting married, they were buying a mattress for their new home, they saw a problem. I was talking to the founders of Purple, and they were saying that they walked the market and they saw that there was so much confusion in the consumption of beauty personal care products, so they need to be someone that solves that problem. I was talking to the founder of Entry, where we've invested, and he said that government jobs in Kerala are the most coveted jobs, but the way to prepare for these jobs is completely broken. We've invested in a company called Cuckoo FM in the vernacular content space, and they said that you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but you speak English. But the content in Rich Dad Poor Dad is very good. Why can't someone who speaks Hindi, Marathi, Tamil, Telugu and Malayalam also get access to that content? Because they also need to self-improve. So I think that deep passion or a mission that translates into business, but the mission remains. Because in my toughest times, I used to just look at the chair next to me, which was my granddad's chair. We just kept that chair in my room with his name on it. And I said, I'm doing it for him, yeah. So even in the tough times, I'll fight through it.
So there's a mission and there's a strong passion and willing to solve that problem, right?
But there has to be a business case.
Yeah,
I think both have to come together, because sometimes it's just a mission that creates no business. That's very risky as well.
True. So then when you are looking at the pitch, take me inside your minds. Like, what are you thinking when you're looking at the pitch?
See, I think actually a pitch deck and a pitch are two different things. A pitch deck has to be interesting enough or exciting enough or compelling enough for me to reply and say, let's do a meeting. So in a pitch deck, honestly, I think it's all sent on WhatsApp now. Everyone opens on their phone. So I have this 30-20-10 rule. Font size 30, less than 20 slides, and should be read from beginning to end in 10 minutes or less. Because people are consuming on their phones, right? That's how it is. So gone are the days when you could make 80, 100-page investment memos now. Those days are gone. Once the meeting starts, actually, I think, I want to see enough that wants me to deep dive, right? And so what I want to see is a strong team with a right to win in a market where there's scope that the business can grow 5x, 10x from here, and some amount of traction, some product market fit, what customers are saying, why is this product better than the rest? I think these things to then deep dive. And then when you deep dive, you go further.
Yeah. Okay. So now we understood like for entrepreneurs who are doing a pitch, so what they need to think about. Now, maybe some entrepreneurs are thinking about what are some hot industries or areas that are money flowing into it. Which ones are the ones that you see?
I'll actually, in the past in conversations, I've been very general about this. So I'll be very specific about it now.
Nice.
If I was to start a business today, I'll give you 5 or 6 areas that I would start, very specific ones. If I wanted to start a bootstrap business, which I would take to like 100, 200 crores in revenue without raising any money, the only space I would build is fashion. And any part of fashion. Fashion is the third oldest market in e-commerce in India. Books, electronics, fashion. In any market in fashion, there's so much depth because India has been consuming for 12 years now fashion online. When I moved back to India about 10 years ago, Myntra was already 2 years in. So Indians are now comfortable to buy expensive clothing, ethnic wear, accessories, footwear, sunglasses, all of these things, right? Fashion and lifestyle products. So I think men's western, formal wear, women's ethnic, kids wear, senior citizen clothing, bags, small leather goods, sunglasses, all massive, massive market opportunities if you can find a niche and get something right. If I was to build a VC funded business, I'll tell you spaces I really like, right? I think another profitable business you can build is in kids entertainment. Kids play areas, trampoline parks, video game market. I think we don't have enough entertainment options in India at all. There's nowhere for me to take my kid, and those can be very profitable businesses. If I wanted to build a venture funded business, I would do hair and skin clinics. I think single specialty healthcare is working in India and people are getting more disposable income to spend on aesthetic, and we don't have enough here. In general, single specialty healthcare, whether it's pediatrics or it's IVF or any of these specific areas also could be very interesting. There is a government push towards toy manufacturing in India. They are preventing the imports of a lot of Chinese toys. And there is something called BIS regulations, Bureau of Indian Standards. Yeah. So toys, made in India toys, will be a big industry going forward. I think from a food and beverage lens, coffee is going to be an emerging theme, and coffee at a lower price point. I've talked about this already in the past. We're seeing startups do this now. Coffee at the 100 to 200 rupee price point, or maybe 80 to 150 rupee price point, is still a large gap in the market. So I would definitely look at that. And I think a general theme going forward is India to global. Indian brands catering to global markets. And initially we have a right to win in 4 or 5 categories, right? Yoga, Ayurveda, spices, tea. These categories we have a right to win, but I think more categories as well. We will see Indian brands going global, solving for the price arbitrage game. So some specific examples that I've given through this.
That's very interesting. Yeah, the coffee is very interesting. I think you can see a trend that was in US and in Europe.
See, basically Starbucks and Blue Tokai and all of these platforms, they have done a very good job. Yeah. But they cater to a section of society.
Yeah, that's it.
There's another section of society that's aspirational, wants to consume coffee. Yeah. Like, I'll give you an example with sneakers, right? So, India aspires for, or the Indian youth will see their favorite celebrity, their favorite actor, their favorite influencer wearing these Nike Jordans or Adidas Yeezys, which cost northwards of 10,000 rupees. They want to buy a shoe that looks similar, but they have only 1,500 rupees or 2,000 rupees in their pocket. There's another theme of not your parents' brands. So, their parents bought not your parents' brands.
What is it?
My parents or their parents, this youth of India, their parents bought footwear brands like Action and Campus and Bata and Asian and Relaxo. They don't want to buy those brands. So now they're looking for something that looks like a Nike Air Jordan, but is a new age brand at 2,000 rupees, at 1,500 rupees, at 2,500 rupees.
Oh, I
So if you
see.
think about consumption in India in general, not your parents' brands for the youth, but the right price point that gives you a feeling that you're getting from what you aspire for at the budget is a really large market opportunity across spaces. I gave you the example of sneakers. There are lots of sneaker brands like Baku, like Zayden, like Comet that are solving for this price point. They're giving shoes between the 1,500 to 4,000 rupee range.
Yeah.
But they may look and feel like your aspired international brands. But 2,000 rupees in India is what 8,000 rupees in the US, right? So $100 there is $25 here in terms of purchasing power parity. I use a one-fourth sort of rule of thumb for the West versus India. And so $25 is a lot of money here.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of money there.
Yeah. So what you say, there's a lot of Indians, there's a lot of aspiration now. But of course,
you got to build at the right price point.
Exactly. There's like, do you have an example of a company that is doing a great job there solving that problem?
Yeah, so I talked about sneakers right now.
Yeah.
I gave you two examples, Zayden,
Any other?
shoes, and Baku. I think that, like, let's look across spaces, right? In men's fashion, for example. There are lots of brands now like Rare Rabbit and Snitch and Bear House that are giving you t-shirts and shirts and pants and trousers and shorts at the 1,000 to 2,000 rupee price point. It looks like something you may get from an FC UK or a Calvin Klein, but those are 4,000, 5,000 rupees. The customer wants to spend 1,500 rupees. I buy from all of these brands now. I'm wearing an Indian brand as the t-shirt I'm wearing. This is a brand called Lemonade Shop. The pants I'm wearing are Senses. They are creating, the pants I'm wearing, I used to wear Lululemon pants. Only Lululemon pants are the most comfortable. For an Indian brand that gives you these pants at 2,000 rupees. So I'm wearing those pants today. And so at the right price point, giving the right experience to Indian customers. So many brands doing this work.
Yeah, we're coming to the end. Now, what is changing in terms of entrepreneurship in India?
I think, look, over the last 3 years, we have seen Shark Tank come to India. We have seen companies list. Just last week, we had Unicommerce and First Cry and Ola Electric list. These are startups, right? That are listing, that are going to the stock market. That's increasing the viability, amenability, and so the trust that parents have that their kids go into the space. Shark Tank allowed my grandmom to understand my work, right? And so with all of these things happening, with all of these outcomes happening, with exits like ours, and people seeing these stories, I think the excitement, but also the amount of people and the funnel entering the startup ecosystem is much more. You're trusting brands now. You're going on Instagram and you're saying, like, 10 years ago, there was no Boat, no Mama Earth, no Licious, no Dr. Vaidya's, no Whole Truth, no Mokobara, no Go Zero. None of these brands existed 10 years ago. Today, they're household names. Attenborough fans, household names, right? And so I think with government push towards the startup ecosystem, with startups doing better, with more foreign money coming to India, global money coming to India, with the existence of domestic capital, with startups listing, it's like the perfect storm which is allowing a large section of society to participate in this. Not just a few of us, that small ecosystem. Like, we used to have meetups for D2C brands where there'd be like 10 people, 15 people. Now there's a meetup every week. I don't go for some because there's 200 people at every meetup and it's happening every week. There's so much happening, right? So I think that's we have passed that tipping point now where startups are mainstream. We're talked about in the mainstream press, in conversation that traditional business people have. They want to participate in the startup ecosystem. So I think entrepreneurship is reaching new peaks every day. And startups are reaching new peaks every day. And I think one more thing, right? I think the confidence in entrepreneurs is much higher than it was 5 years ago. Like, I was scared to say the word 100 crores or the phrase 100 crores. Today, entrepreneurs say it on their first pitch meeting. And they're like, we'll do it in 2 years and show you. And they do it. And they make it happen.
But it's also a more crowded market, right?
Much more crowded.
But
see, I'll tell you, in India, every market where someone sees success, because we are democratic, because we're perfectly competitive, you will see competition coming in.
Yeah.
So in Ayurveda, for example, I teach a D2C cohort and I've taught more than 2,000 entrepreneurs an 8-week program on building a D2C brand. I do it out of passion. More than 100 of these entrepreneurs have been Ayurveda entrepreneurs who do Ayurveda online. I don't think there is a space for 100 Ayurveda brands on Amazon. But after the success of a few Ayurveda brands, including us, they've come into the market.
Yeah.
So India will always be a market like that. Where there is opportunity, there will be 100 people coming in.
Yeah.
How you fend off that competition, how you build your defensibility, how you build your moat, and how you succeed versus the rest is your moat, your right to win, your secret sauce. And that's what you got to figure out.
Yeah, so now there's a lot of people coming. So maybe in your example, like before you became an entrepreneur, maybe you had some ideas what entrepreneur was, you know. What was something that was completely different than you had imagined before starting your...
you cannot foresee, like everyone said it's a roller coaster ride, but then in the press it seems like this beautiful, sexy thing, and there's all these success stories and Instagram reels with motivational music in the background and all that stuff, right? So it seems very sexy from the outside. You can't foresee the amount of failure you will encounter. You just cannot foresee it. It changes you as a person. You just are able to take things with a pinch of salt and take it on the chin and move on after you've seen failure so much. I think it's a great skill for anyone to get.
How did that change you as a person?
Well, I think I matured a lot as a person in the 5-6 years that I built a business. A lot. I learned to accept failure a little bit more. I learned to deal with people. I learned to enter a room where I knew no one and actually engage and have a conversation. I learned to get over that fear of speaking to new people. I think all of these things were life skills that entrepreneurship taught me. And whether I go back into it again or not, skills that I'll live with all my life.
Very good. We're coming to the end, and just one last question. What is the one thing that you want people to remember from this conversation?
I think there's too many things to pinpoint one thing.
Only one.
But if I was to pick maybe just one idea or thought, I think between iPhone 1 and iPhone 15 that we are at right now, or wherever we are at, right? It's been like 20 years. That's like 5 generations in 20 years, right? As generations are becoming smaller and as the gap is increasing, we are losing the importance or value for experience and grey hair and learning from people who have seen it before. I've learned a lot from people who are older and more experienced than me, and I submit myself to be a student. And I think as I see younger entrepreneurs, sometimes I see that lacking, that openness to hear someone who's done something, who's 20 years, 30 years older than you. And I'm not saying everything they'll say is right. Everything that my seniors and my elders and my mentors may say is not correct, and maybe they're not with it in all the time. But some of the things you can pick up from there will allow you to mitigate a lot of mistakes. And I learned a lot from those people who advised me against doing certain things. Either by doing them and not taking their advice and then thinking about what they told me, or sometimes taking their advice as well.
Very good. Thank you for coming. I loved our conversation. I love your energy. And thank you for sharing so much with us and helping so many entrepreneurs.
Thank you. My pleasure.